Hi guys, I'm Stephen Englander. This is my online course of programs and this module's on cold calling. With me on this course today is my old friend Stuart. Say hi, Stuart.
Hi all.
And the reason I brought Stuart on this course today with me is because Stuart's probably one of the best guys you'll ever meet in the area of cold calling. And even though I've grown up in the world of cold calling, Stuart's far more so. Love it or hate it, cold calling is it's got to become part of your day, even if you don't like it. And if you are going to succeed, then you've got to find a way of making you do it. So hopefully we'll come up with a few ideas from this course and a few tips of how things work. Without cold calling, I wouldn't have started a business. I mean, Stuart and I used to go out canvassing. I used to go out before I met Stuart, and Stuart went out cold calling way before he met me. So I don't want to oversell cold calling, but it is a very, very important part of any role for a business startup or to grow a business. And pinching an idea from Anthony Robbins and reinterpreting it, we always say to people, if you could do something that if you did it well and did it repeatedly would make a massive difference to your business, would you do it? And most people won't even think about what it is that they need to do, because it invariably means cold calling. And it's not that easy to get somebody else to do it. You've got to do it. So in this particular module, we're going to be looking at cold calling via telephone rather than cold calling going out knocking on doors, which we've done plenty of that, haven't we, Stuart?
Well, we certainly have, yeah.
Have you got a story to tell?
Well, quite a few.
One that didn't get us arrested?
Haven't got any then.
Okay, so moving on to the next one. That's me. I do take pride in what I do. Stuart takes pride in what he does. In fact, our whole team take pride in what we do, because if nothing else, it makes all those 40, 45 years of being in business sort of not wasted. It means we can pass all the mistakes and all the experiences onto somebody who can really, really take advice from it. So, but if you do want to contact me to talk about anything or to put an idea forward or tell me why you're having problems of being successful in cold calling. In fact, all you have to do is tell me I'm not being very successful in cold calling, and I'll tell you why you're not, even if I've never met you. So please feel free to email me anytime you want at stephen@accountsdirect.biz or contact@stephenenglander.co.uk. So let's get going. So we're going to look at, these are the main areas of the course: tele sales, telemarketing, a little bit about an agency, and the whole program's about tips. That's what cold calling is. It's getting better at what you do rather than any strict format. In fact, don't ever use a format, don't ever use a script. Just know what you're trying to achieve and know what to say, and the words come. Remember, you're always having a conversation. You're not necessarily following a particular proven system. So telephone sales. I call it telesale, telemarketing, because telemarketing encompasses everything, not just the telephone sales. It can be a lot cheaper than going out visiting people, but it can also be a little bit difficult to get people to listen to you. So what we're trying to do all the time is always planning, always thinking what we want from this call. It is an art. What's your biggest tip when you're phoning someone, Stuart?
My biggest tip when I'm phoning somebody is just trying to keep them on the, first of all, to keep them on the phone for 10, 15 seconds and get into a dialogue with them. Once you've actually broken that 10, 15 seconds, you've got more chance of pitching to them. So it's the first 10, 15 seconds which are so important.
You're creating a rapport with people.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you got a favourite rapport that you try and?
No, I haven't. It all depends on the voice that I'm listening to at the other end, and I just switch into different modes. Yeah,
it's true. You can learn a lot even by the name. Sometimes by the name you can tell how old they are or what culture they come from, and that can make a difference before you start speaking as well, can't it?
Yeah, because you can tell after the first 2 or 3 words that they speak to you, and you can tell whether they're going to listen to you, they're going to understand you, they're going to want to listen to you, or they've got time for you. It's amazing how you can just pick things up.
Yeah. And what would you rather do? Would you rather visit somebody, or would you rather speak to them on the phone?
Well, at first, I would have rather visited people, but now it's on the phone all day long.
Yeah, Because remember, years ago, even from our accountants business, we used to do some telemarketing, and we mainly used to make appointments to go out and see people, and we suddenly switched, didn't we, to just pure tele sales over the phone, and all of a sudden our practice started growing throughout the country. It's all on the back of telephone sales, wasn't it?
You're also limited as well, Stephen. When you you make telephone calls, because if you're going to go out to see people, because you can't really go out to make a telephone call for someone that's in Bournemouth or in Brighton or in Southend. You can't do that because you can't.
Can if you're in Southend or
yeah, but we're not. If you're based where we're based in central England, northern England, it's impossible. But if you're on the phone to anybody, you can speak to anybody UK worldwide. And
we do, don't we? And we do.
Yeah, we do, and it's worked.
A lot of stuff you sell is stock, so you're constantly speaking to people in different countries about buying and selling stock.
I am very much so. Yeah.
So let's just moving on. So planning is as an accountant, my whole life is about planning. Plan, measure, tweak. Plan a bit more, measure a bit more, tweak a bit more. And quite often, if you don't know what it is you're going to be saying, you can often stumble. You can often not be sure what you're saying, and you can quite easily get fobbed off, can't you, Stuart? I mean, when you speak to people, one thing I've noticed about you, as opposed to a lot of people that have worked under you, is that you know what you want out of the telephone conversation. It's
funny because you mentioned before about a name of a person, and just by looking at the name of the person and how it's spelt and either the difficulty or not difficulty and how you pronounce it, I'll know how my mind switches to that name and know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, it is, because you're picking up cues all the time from people. People give out signals all the time, whether it's on the phone or face to face. The really good ones are great poker players as well, because they pick up, they just pick up all the tells all the time. I mean, it used to be in sales. What we used to say, get them nodding.
Yeah, correct.
Get them agreeing with you.
Once they're nodding, or they say yes. Because when you're in sales and you're in somebody's house, the first thing you come across is a barrier, and the verbal barrier you have is, I'm not going to sign on today. I'm not going to sign on today. No. 9 times out of 10, those people that say that sign on today.
I remember selling kitchens, because you used to sell kitchens as well.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember this guy straight away. I just walked in and he said, "I'm not going to sign anything tonight. I'm not going to be buying anything off you." And I just said to him, "If I did a kitchen for you for 50 quid, would you want it?" So he goes, "Yeah." So I just said, so it's about getting the price right, isn't it? And it's you've done stuff like that as well. I know.
Of course.
But also being on the phone, it opens up the door to lots of other things. Like the goal of the telesales might not to be get a sale. It might be to move the relationship onto another level. So sometimes it's to make an appointment. Well, there's no harm in having a chat with me. It's my time. When I give you a quote, you can always throw it away. It's to set up the next part of the sales process. It's not necessarily, I mean, it's great if you can make the sale then and there. That's brilliant. I mean, that happens, but it's better and calmer and more gentlemanly and more trustworthy if it's an introduction to get to know somebody. I mean, I know telesales people. I mean, they've worked for us. That the goal is to say hello. The goal is to chit chat. Sometimes it's to chat somebody up, to take them out. It can go in many, many different ways. But what you're doing is you're making a relationship. You're finding things out without being too sneaky, in order to sell your product. So if you know what the client wants, I mean, basic 101 sales. That it's like, know who your customer is, know what their dreams are, know what they want, and then figure a way that's going to convince them to buy off you instead of somebody else. And you can look at telesales almost like fact finding. Find the information on to move it up. I mean, a lot of firms just have people doing that, ready for the person above them to go back with more information.
Yeah, they're called the warmer-uppers.
The warmer-uppers. Yeah. So, but it is difficult. I mean, Stuart, what stops you from doing more telesales? What would you find that you struggle with when, or even people you've trained? What's been the the worry.
Well, look, more often than not, the more people you speak to, the more people you're going to have the phone slammed down.
Yeah.
It's a given. It's an absolute given on that. But once you get past that, it's fine. But that's what I don't like, bringing up people and you speak to them and I'm not interested. Bang, the phone goes down.
Yeah.
I'm not interested. Bang, the phone goes down. It's very degrading at times, and then you think to yourself, sometimes, well, why do I do this?
Mm.
But again, it's down to you. It's down to the voice. Sometimes when they hear a young voice, and the young person doesn't know how to speak to that person, they've got no chance. But when you've got an older type of person who's been there, done it, seen it, wore the t-shirt. I'm not saying in cold calling. I'm saying in any way of life, walk of life, business, but personal. They tend to listen to you a little bit more, or give you the benefit of the doubt for the extra 10-15 seconds, and then that's when you've got them either to, well, tell you what I'll do. If you can't speak now, I'll give you a call back in a couple of days. And then you say, well, is there any particular time? Give me a ring at 2:30. Sure, what day? And then once you've got that and you write it down into your system, or you put it into Salesforce, and then Salesforce prompts you to call them back. Hi, it's such and such from Accounts Direct. I spoke to you the other day. You asked me to give you a call back. From a cold lead, you've got a very warm, strong lead. Mm. Oh, yes, that's right. I remember you. Yeah. Anyway, how are you? And then you go into a life conversation, and then after you've spoke to that person and asked how the family are, and Uncle Bulgaria's uncle is, and all that business, you've got them.
So it's confidence, a lot of it, isn't it? I think this is where these scripted calls fall down, because a lot of companies, it's very, very easy to fall into the trap of writing the script and then reading it. It's wooden and it doesn't sound right, and like now I'm stuttering a bit, I'm overthinking what I'm saying. But if you've got it written down, speech doesn't sound the same as when you write things down. It's two different things entirely. And if you do know what you're talking about, you don't need to write anything down. You might have a little few pointers to remind you, oh, I've not said that. But on the main, if you know what you're talking about, you don't need a script. And if you do need a script, you probably don't know what you're talking about. And that, again, undermines what you sound like, and confidence just isn't there.
I think if you've just got a telesales team, I think I agree with you. A script is for people that don't know what they're doing or saying. But if you just give them a prompt at the beginning and just tell them what you want and what you want them to say, use your own vocabulary, do it in your own way.
Yeah,
it becomes easier for them.
Yeah, I've had people say I'm not very good at telesales because English isn't my first language, or this or that, and it's just not true. It doesn't matter where you're from. Doesn't matter what you say. As long as you sound confident and knowledgeable, you're fine. So if English isn't your first language, then obviously you've got to speak English, but you don't need to speak the Queen's English. You can just, as long as people understand you and you speak clearly, it's you're making friends, you're getting to know people. You're not asking them out. You're just getting them to trust you, at least so that they'll have another conversation with you. Sometimes warming things up is good. Sometimes do you remember when we used to send letters out to people years ago? And we found that it didn't make any difference whether we sent the letters or not, as long as we could do the opener saying, we sent you a letter the other day about our service. Oh, yes. And then we thought, well, hang on, we never actually sent any out. But we, because we forgot to post them. But as long as you've got a good opener, yeah. So I'll move on to the next slide. So training. So how do you train in telesales? It's difficult to train in sales.
I don't think you can, to be honest with you, because the people that are going to come for telesales are going to be the ones that have done it before, or want to do it, and they'll know what to say, if they're any good.
You remember years ago,
whatever it's worth,
we did a video and we did a potato, and we put your head in the potato and you were the potato.
That's right, I remember.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Well, the video was basically saying, we started off by saying, how do you teach people to make money? How do you teach people to sell? And you can sort of learn how to operate a machine. You can teach people how to be anything, even quantum scientists, quantum physics. And but how do you teach people to make money and to sell to make money? And it's difficult to train people because it's a mindset, and the mindset is ideally you can't wait to speak to the next person on your list, because now you're going to make a piece of paper person into a real person, and it's going to turn them into something new, and you don't know what will come from it. And you're very good at that, Stuart. I don't think I've ever heard you on the phone with anyone where you've not had anyone laughing. You've had a laugh and you've come back, and it actually rejuvenates you.
Yeah, I think that comes from experience, though, Stephen. You know, it really, really does. And I love it. I love getting them laugh. I love making them laugh and having a joke with them. And as I just said, talking about their family and their life and their health. And you know, before I move on to anything, if I've got them on the phone long enough. And you know, it's if you can't get past that 10, as I said, that 10-15 seconds, it's just it's not going to happen.
Getting past people. How do you get past the gatekeeper? Oh, that's a bad one, isn't it? You found someone, like you try and get hold of me at the office, and I've got about 10 gatekeepers stopping you from getting hold of me.
Only 10.
Yeah. How do you get through to you? How do you get through to the right person from the secretary? It's difficult, isn't it? Is it possible?
It is very difficult. I would send an email. I would ask for an email if we didn't have it. I would send an email, and then ring back a couple of days later, say we sent an email, and I've had a response to give you a call back, and I'll speak to him or her. And very rare, it happens, but very rare that I don't actually get through to the let's say the kingpin. I just get through to the to the men that run.
You've often asked them for help, haven't you? You've asked the secretary or the gatekeeper for help.
Yeah, I have. Not on many occasions, but yes, I have. And
you've offered them cash, haven't you?
Oh dear!
Didn't you send pictures of yourself naked to one of them? Was that the ones the police came?
Yeah. Taking the tone down. Go on, take the tone down, as you always do in every interview.
But it is confidence, getting past the gatekeepers.
Yeah, it is.
Knowing how to just deal with people. I mean, if you don't know your product, you can't answer too many questions on it. So do know your product. Do be aware. I mean, the first few times you do telesales, what you're actually looking for is to find out what objections people have got. Why people are saying no, I don't want it. Just ask why. Why don't you want to speak to me? Why didn't you want the product?
Always answer. Always answer a question with another question.
Yeah.
To try and glean as much information as you can out of them.
Yeah. Would you ever outsource telesales to a telemarketing company?
Would I personally?
Yeah.
Yes, I would try it. Yes, I suppose I would. Yes. I mean, would you?
Well, I have done, and it can be quite effective.
Yeah, of course you have. Yeah.
Yeah, but it can be effective. It can be a lot of wasted money. I certainly wouldn't do it in the early days, and I certainly wouldn't do it until I got to know what the expected returns are. So if you phone 100 people, how many result in moving to the next level, then how many buy? These are called the key performance indicators, the KPIs. So when you are setting up a telesales area, do make sure that you set up the KPIs as well.
Very much, yeah.
Yeah, and at least the more you know about something, the less people can blag you, because a lot of telesales companies are not to be trusted no matter what they say. So if you know what you're doing, then you can outsource. So let's see what else we've got on this lot. So telemarketing can perform several useful roles. So Stuart, tell me if you don't agree with any of this. Identifying key personnel at target companies.
I agree with that.
That's But that's important, because it's like we talked about a gatekeeper before. And I know I've spoken to many people in the past. It's so aggravating, and they seem to be giving all the buying signals, asking you how much it is, when you can deliver, you know, asking all the right questions. Then all of a sudden you think you've got a sale and you're ready to hone in with the close. Like, okay, so when would you like this contract to start? You know, and the terms like, oh, I'll have to speak to my boss. It's like, oh.
Yeah, you'll have to speak to your boss. I'll have to speak to my wife.
Yeah. The wife's a big one, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Wife's massive. Massive.
I mean, very few times do people actually really have to speak to the wife or the husband. That's usually a put off. What would you say to that?
Well, hang on, just let me park that for a moment. Come back to me with that one in a moment. If you're really going to do your homework and you do it properly, and you're ringing limited companies, you check out on the limited company to find out who the directors are first.
Yeah.
So you've got the person's partner's name, and that comes across fantastic. If you're speaking to Tom and you've got Harry as the partner,
Yeah.
it's only Tom that will speak. Oh, right, yeah. Well, there's Harry involved as well, isn't there? Is he or she with you? Once you've got that, it makes you come across very, very well, professional. And
it's about the research, isn't it? Know who you're dealing with.
Very important.
Yeah.
Very important.
If you don't know who you're dealing with, you could be dealing with anybody. So make sure that you're dealing with this particular module is about cold calling, but we do have others which will introduce you to the idea of know who you want to deal with, know your customer, what research to do. But it's all ties in. It's like a Venn diagram. You've got preparation for the sale, you've got the warm up for the sale, and you've got the sale, and then you've got the aftercare. So everything, there is a procedure to follow, and the procedure works very well. And this is why I like talking through things rather than just a simple PowerPoint presentation. Because even I think I've noted here, follow up on mail shots, follow up on exhibitions, just follow up. And the telesales skills that you learn by cold calling are invaluable, because if you do stand an exhibition, or someone's even coming to your shop, you do want to follow these things up. It's great. You go to breakfast clubs are a big thing for people, and general networking events, and it's very easy to sit down and have a chat, eat the breakfast, eat the lunch, and talk to the person next to you about football or something, and think you've made a great rapport. But after the event, you need to follow that up. And not only do you need to follow it up, but you need to follow it up in a way that you're not going to continue this conversation about football. In fact, just don't talk about these things, because a very quick comment, but don't get into it, because you're not there to talk about football. You're there to talk about some form of business, even if you're just listening to what they're saying.
Yeah, I must say, in fairness, when you're discussing your breakfast meetings, or you're speaking to somebody, or if you get through the 10-15 second initial 10-15 seconds, and you do discuss football, or you can tell by listening to the person, it's got a big pull. It has got a big pull to a big majority of people. Not everybody, like yourself, you're not a great football lover, but it's a good pull. But you're right. The next time you speak to them, again, you don't need to mention it unless they do. And that's one thing I wouldn't do. I wouldn't mention it.
No, you wouldn't. And even if you are chit-chatting, it doesn't have to be football, it could be rugby, it could be Spider-Man comics, it could be whatever the point is that you're opening up the conversation with. It's not about that. That's the opener. That's to get them listening. That's to get a rapport going. The rest of it is about what you're there for. Ideally, when I'm at these things, I try and get them to tell me about their business, about what they're doing, why have they come, what have they done today, have they come to meet anybody, or who they come with. And one thing I always find is a great conversation starter. If someone says, like, what do you do? Oh, how do you get into that? Oh, how do you get your first customers?
Again, it's questions. You're building up. You either write it down in your head. You're building up. You're building up like a portfolio of them on the phone, even though you can't see them.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. You have got to be careful what questions you ask, because you don't want to sound like you're probing. I mean, you're not going to meet someone for the first time after 5 minutes telling you how much money they've got in the bank, or how much they've fiddled the tax man. Although in saying that, they do tell me this as soon as they know an accountant. They do start telling me all this. I think, well, I've only just met you. It's surprising what people will say if they picture you as the person they want to speak to.
Before then, though, Stephen, they've got to trust you first.
They've got to trust you, yeah.
Then they picture you as that person.
Well, who doesn't trust an accountant, and who doesn't trust that face? Keep in touch, because otherwise you're wasting the whole point of the telesales.
Yeah.
So always follow up. I know I've jumped the gun here, but always follow up. Now, I will come back to say that in my experience, telesales calls to businesses are far more successful than to the public. So I would say if you're selling through the telephone, I'd be very careful of dealing with the public. Not only do you have all these massive GDPR laws, but you have the public tend to be a bit more temperamental, whereas if you're dealing with a business, they tend to be a bit more world wary. They're usually a bit more hardened, and if they don't want to talk to you, they'll just put the phone down. Whereas a member of public can get all upset, and you can phone some little old lady in the middle of dinner, and she's all upset and doesn't understand why you're phoning her or him. So I personally wouldn't have a telesales company to the public, unless of course you've got something where you already know the client or the potential client because they've been in the shop and you've got a point of reference to them. So, oh, hi, Mrs. Jones, it's Stephen. You came into my shop the other day. You know, while you weren't looking, I was nicking cash out of your purse. You know, I felt guilty, and I've now brought it back for you. But as long as you've got a point of reference, you're okay. Would you agree with that, Stuart? Or would you just go ahead and just yeah? But you wouldn't phone to give the money back, would you?
Definitely not.
No.
Would you? Yes, you would.
Yeah, of course I would. Of course I would. I would. If I'm, you know, I've got this terrible conscience. No, I must tell you, you know, many years ago, I had a shop with my sister. Do you remember? We had a few shops. 40 years ago, and I remember we used to sell things like general groceries, but we sold a lot of fancy goods and all sorts. And I remember this little old lady came in once, and she looked like she hadn't eaten for a week. Honestly, she was so thin, and her clothes were falling off her, and she was a bit of a smell to her as well. You could see she was, and it was. Do you remember when we had pound notes? We did have pound notes, you remember? And anyway, she brought some milk and she brought some bread, and it came to just under £1. And she took out of her purse this pound note. It was all crumpled up, and she gave it me, and I gave her a change. And as she was walking out of the shop, when I was straightening them out, the pound notes out to put in the till, I noticed there was £2 notes. But I didn't say anything, didn't say a word. And you know what? To this day, I still feel guilty that I didn't split it with my sister. Anyway, moving on. Sorry about that. But,
you nasty man.
Well, I know. I mean, she'll watch this video now and realise I owe her 50 pence. But you know, what can you do? Sorry. So, telemarketing, it does have some disadvantages, and the main thing is that you can't see the other person, so you can't read them. You know, I mean, I love all this new Skype stuff and this new Zoom stuff, because this may be a great way to talk to people where you can see them, you can look them in the eyes, and you become a person. A funny thing, at work, I'm not always a great one for meetings because I find it very disturbing, and I've got lots of things to do. But I also find that I'm not a big lover of talking to people on the phone. But I quite like this. It's like all the good things about meeting face to face, because all of a sudden the person in front of you becomes a person, as opposed to just a phone call where you can just put the phone down. And it's all about connection. It's all about relationship. So the more you phone people, the more you speak to them, the more you engage with them, the easier the whole process becomes. What do you say, Stuart? Would you say so? I mean, would you not be scared that you'd put someone off when they saw you? That you scared them? Yeah. Put the baseball bat under the table and relax, knowing that you don't have your trousers on.
Oh dear, I don't know where to go with this one. Sorry.
Let's move on. Let's move on. So we mentioned agencies before, and they can be quite expensive. I mean, I've used a few. I've not found them particularly great. That's because me, Stuart, and the rest of my team are quite good on telesales, and they couldn't be as good as we are, because people never are. It's our business. It's our. Well,
it's just like in any business, really. If you're not at the forefront of it, of a small business, and you've got somebody else looking after it, 50% of the turnover is not going to be there, because at the end of the day they get paid, they've got a wage. Whereas if you're there, your business, you'll take a lot more than anybody else is.
Yeah. Watch the contracts as well with these types of people, because then anything that in business that you get involved with, where you've got to sign a contract, and the only benefit to you is on the results they get. So it's like tele sales firms, and these types of firms often phone me, advertising firms. And I said to one a while ago, look, I know it's great what you're doing, and I know you're probably the best on the planet, but if it doesn't work, I'm out of pocket. You know, so why don't we do this? Do it for a week, and if you succeed, I'll pay you double. But if you don't get anything, I don't pay you at all.
So sorry, I know you.
What would your answer be to something like that?
I couldn't hear the question. Sorry.
No. I said to the person trying to sell me the services of an agency.
Okay.
And I said, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. Work for me for a week, generate the leads, generate the clients, and if I get anything at all, any sale, then I will pay you double your fees and take you on a longer term contract.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if someone said that to you, what would you say? Would you accept the challenge?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they decided not to.
Yeah, I know they will do. They will do.
So that just tells me that they're not very good at what they're doing. Otherwise, you know. And I often find that. So not all of them are. Some of them take the attitude, no, I'm really good. Why should I work for nothing? You know, okay, I'll give you a bit of a discount just in case. But you know, they do take that attitude. So I think it's like anything you deal with, and this is nothing to do with cold calling. If you trust people, you will buy off them. If you don't know them, then you can't trust them, except maybe if they're called McDonald's or they've got a massive brand. But if you don't know them, then how are you going to trust them? So you've got to do some sort of fear management when you're talking to them. You've got to have some reversal of the pain. So you've got to say, I will do this, and give them some guarantees that you will achieve what they say they want, that what you promise. It's a difficult one because you don't want to be working for nothing on the one hand, but on the other hand, you do want to prove yourself. I mean, quite often we've said to new clients, look, you don't know who we are. We'll write up last year's accounts for you for nothing. And if you like what we do, you'll point us. And if you don't, then we won't charge you, but you can keep the accounts. And we get very, very few across the last 35 years that have ever taken us up on that, because the mere fact that we're offering it seems to inspire some confidence. So just bear in mind, put yourself in the shoes of the people that you're trying to sell to, you know, and see what comes from it. You do that, do you, Stu? You just don't carry on with your promises.
Well, I do that, and
I know.
I do carry on with my promise. I do.
You would never be a second-hand car salesman, would you? Honest Stu.
I'd never be a second-hand car salesman. No,
you could never have Honest Stu on the front window.
No.
No.
I'm not saying I'm dishonest by saying no to that, but I'm just saying I couldn't do that.
It's not your style, is it?
Not at all.
No. So just going back, even though the title, Should I Use an Agency? I think you've also got to look at things like keeping customer lists, maintaining contact with older people, because you've got to make sure that your data is up to date. I mean, how many times have you phoned somebody and you've asked for John and John left the company 5 years ago?
It happens. It does happen.
Happens.
Yeah.
So,
but that just goes to show we're doing the right thing, because I've been in contact with people for 2, 3, 4, 5 years even, and 2, 3 years down the line to come on board, purely because they remember my voice when I rang them back when I said I was going to ring them back.
Yeah. Well, this is another point with agencies, because agencies will tend to keep this data up to date. And if you are, you know, it's important nowadays that if someone's on the telephone preference scheme or anything like that, and you phone them, you can cause aggravation for yourself. And you don't want to annoy people. So if people said, no, I don't want to be called, then you know what? Just don't call them. Just go around to the houses with a baseball bat. No, just don't call them. But this is where agencies do come in. So sometimes maybe a little bit of both. Maybe buy your list of agencies, maybe let them warm them up, maybe get them to do a bit, maybe you do a bit. But it's a question of learning the best way to do it. You see, employing people isn't always the best way to go further either, because they can be just as dishonest and just as unreliable, and you can end up spending more money on hiring the wrong individuals than by subbing it out to an agency. So like I said at the beginning, the best thing to do is know how to do it yourself, so you know what you're looking for when you go into an agency or employing a member of staff. So let's see what the next slide is. So we'll have a little chat now at some tips that will help you get going as a telesales person, and maybe even if you have done it in the past, maybe push you to do it again. She looks bored, doesn't she? So be clear about what you want to achieve from the call. Without a clear objective, you cannot plan. Know what you want from the call. Stu, do you remember when you used to do that pitch when you're on the markets years ago?
Yeah.
Can you do it?
Of course I can still do it. I can do parts of it. I can't remember all of it.
We'll do a little bit.
A little bit of the pitch.
Yeah.
When people are in front of me and I'm standing up there looking down at them.
When you're on the markets with the pot and you used to stand up.
Oh, when I'm standing there. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to have our first sale of the day. And as everybody knows, the first sale is the best sale. In fact, the things you'll normally buy for pounds, I'm going to sell for shillings. And the things you'll buy for shillings, I'm going to sell for pennies. And it works on, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. Yay!
Yeah.
Like we throw things out in the audience to customers. We throw combs out as like lost leaders, and you look for somebody with no hair, and you say, "Well, you don't want one of these, mate, do you? You've got no hair." And you throw it to somebody else, you know, or a toothbrush. You look for somebody who's got no teeth. You don't want one of these, love, do you? You know, I'll sling you some Sensodyne or whatever. You know, stuff like that. It's just getting the crowd on your side, get them a good feel, so that they trust you. You know, moving forward.
Incidentally, if you do have a company and you do feel that some of the people you're working with, or even yourself, could do with some one-to-one tuition, then let me know and I'll put you on to Stuart, because it's part of the services that he offers for us and our clients.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and you could always have a chat with him over the phone. He can guide you which way to go.
Absolutely.
So again, we've mentioned before that you need to know who you're talking to. So Stuart mentioned before, we deal with mainly limited companies, and it's very simple to go onto the Companies House database online and have a look at that company. You can find out who the owners are, well, who the directors are, who the shareholders are, and if you know how to read accounts, you can get a rough idea of whether they're what size of business you're talking about, and you can find related companies as well. So do know who they are. I mean, you can, if you're in a position that you're collecting data, you can drive past people's shops. You can go to a local precinct, or you can go into town. And when I was talking to a young man the other day online, who actually goes on to onto Google Maps, and he looks at all the names of a building and who's in that building, and then he just sets about calling them. So a little bit of research goes a very long way. In fact, my dad, and I think Stuart knows what I'm going to say, he's pushing 80, and he says, I went on Google Maps the other day, and that's how I'm getting business. I'm Googling. So I said, how are you getting business on Google Maps? What do you do? So I'm thinking he's got some algorithm or some email that goes out, and he says, no, I drive down the road on Google Maps. I look at all these shops that sell the sort of things that I want to sell them, and then I phone them up and say, I've just seen you on Google Maps. So but it works for him. He's done very well out of it. Do you remember with LinkedIn? Not LinkedIn, Stuart. What was the one that you were phoning? Twitter. You were
Twitter
phoning.
calls,
yeah. So tell me what you were doing with Twitter.
Well, I was ringing them, and we had the actual names of people to call, and I was getting on the phone to them, and I was it just came straight to me to come out with and say, oh, you're such a company, you know, this is our company. We actually follow us on Twitter, and we follow you on Twitter, and the conversation evolved from there. So it was as like it wasn't a cold call, even though it was.
Yeah, because we follow you, you follow us.
Do we? Oh, yes.
I thought I'd phone to say hello.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was it. That's a great fantastic in.
It is all these things, but it just shows you that the one-to-one phone call is often better than just these sending out thousands of emails that are anonymous and nobody ever reads anyway. So 3, put a smile in your voice and always sound happy and enthusiastic. What do you say, Stuart?
Sorry, what was that again? Sorry, I was being asked if I wanted a cup of tea.
It's lucky it's not live. Tell her I'll have one as well.
Andrea wants one as
I'll
well.
have a cup of tea as well.
He wants a cup of tea. Get one for Ed as well. What a bit of whiskey in his red. Looks that time.
So,
yeah.
If you pick up somebody and you sound really miserable, or just
if you go what? Sorry, if what? Sorry,
if you phone someone and sound really miserable, it's not going to inspire them to want to talk to you. It's not about selling them anything. It's about, well, why would I want to speak to this one? Because you're quite upbeat on the phone, aren't you, Stuart?
Yeah, I am. You've got to be, because there's no point being not being upbeat, because you're not going to get anywhere. You've got to be. But it's not the case of got to be for me, because I like doing it to a degree, because it can be, as I've said at the very beginning of this conversation, it can be very draining and putting off. But if you do it correctly and you know what you're talking about, it can be great.
Yeah. Well, you also have a policy.
Very fruitful as well in the financial way, in the long term as well.
Yeah. But you also have a policy that you only do it for half an hour, don't you?
That's it, no more, because it would
or you'll only make a certain amount of calls.
Well, that as well. Yeah, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen you do it. I've seen Stuart on the phone. And he said, right, I've had enough. I'm going out for lunch now. And it's only like 10:30 in the morning. And then he comes back at 2.
Yeah. There's also certain names that I will call or won't call, because you're going to get common sense, or you're going to get a conversation, or just by looking at the name, you're not going to get anything. So no point.
You're like Englander. Don't phone him.
I would run a million miles from that name if that came up.
Yeah, well, I would. I would.
It's actually a very strong monarch. That I like Englander. It's very strong.
It is. I mean, Del Monte is such a stupid name, isn't it?
Yeah,
Stuart Del Monte.
Listen. We're very, very similar. We've both got 3 syllables in our last name.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So then the next one, we've got to. Do you remember the days when, I think it still goes on, where Tele Sales people used to use false names?
It still goes on.
It still goes on. I've never understood that.
On, yeah.
If I'm talking to someone, you're talking to me. I'll put my picture up, put my video up. A lot of people don't like it. So introduce yourself properly, but also, can you imagine? Do you know, I hate it when people phone me and call me Steve. Do you like being called? Well, I can't say that word, can I? But people need to call you by your proper name. It's nice to people call you by the proper name.
People, I mean, the reason people, maybe use pseudonames is maybe because that, they're well known for something they shouldn't be well known for, and they've got that chip on their shoulder type of thing. That's maybe why they do. I'm not saying that is the reason,
but it's not.
What other reason would there be not to use your name?
Well, because you don't know it, or to try. It's like I get called mate, and I go, first thing I'll say is I'm not your mate, and down goes the phone. I just whatever. But there's nothing, Mr. Jones or Mr. Del Monte.
Well, normally certain names I would say are Mr. or Mrs. And then after about 10-15 seconds, I'll say, look, do you mind if I call you X or Y?
Yeah, that's different. But you can also tell by the voice or the name or even the information you've got. As a general rule of thumb, if someone's older than you, put the Mr. or Mrs. or Miss in it. If someone's younger than you, then maybe you can call them by the first name. What do you reckon, Stu?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree.
Yeah, but don't never swear at anyone. Never be rude.
Well, we don't, do we? I mean, I've never done that before.
But there's been people I've seen be very annoyed with people because they're not interested. You just always stay polite. There used to be a rule in sales. They used to say, go with the sale or go with the wallpaper, which meant, make sure nobody else walks in after you and makes the sale. So start nice and but that's not my approach, and I wouldn't push that either. But there is an element of that, but if you introduce yourself, then they've got you. They know your name. They know who you are. So then all of a sudden you're taking responsibility for that call. That person stops being a number and becomes a person, and give a little bit to get a little bit back.
Give a little bit to get a lot back.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've said this, plan your opening words very carefully. They grab attention, and this means that what you say must be relevant to the prospect. So again, research. I mean, even, you know, you can even phone and say, hi, Mr. Jones, I'm sorry to trouble you. I'm from such and such firm. I've just been asked to just find a bit of information about you. I'm just wondering if you could tell me what your email is. Okay, thank you. You know, oh, what do you want? Oh, well, we're just an accountant's firm.
Sometimes, though, if you ask the question, it gives them the power to say nothing, thank you, goodbye, put the phone down.
Well, it does.
So you've sometimes got to try and avoid that unless you get in and past the 15 seconds.
Yeah. So what's your normal opening line?
I haven't really got one because, as I say, it's different. It's different to every.
Okay. Well, you're phoning me in a bookkeeping software.
Yeah. So
what would be your 10 to open line up?
Well, hi, is that Mr. Such and such a person? Hi, it's Stuart here from Accounts Direct. I believe you're interested in such and such a thing. No, we're not. Oh, well, I've got an email here to say that you are. It's either an email or a call. No, I didn't. Oh, it might have been somebody else in the business. Is it your business? Yes, it is. I said, oh, right. Well, we're business tax specialists as well. I mean, you know, if you've got problems or you've had problems, you know, we're obviously the people to help you. And once I've got past there, I know for a fact I can keep the conversation going with questions.
Yeah.
But
I've just looked online. Really sorry to trouble you. I was just looking at my other company. I noticed your name came up, and I noticed your accounts are running a bit late. They've got to be filed by next week, or you're going to get a fine.
Absolutely. If it's a limited company, I'll have all that information in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all sorts. You know, always try and stick to the truth. Don't try and be clever. Don't try and you can flatter people a little bit because you do a lot of that, don't you, Stuart?
What do you mean? Because I'm so heavy?
Flatter.
I know. I'm only joking. I know.
I know. Yeah, but you do though, don't you? You've often flirted with a lot of the guys that answer the phone.
Yeah, you know, it's nice. You know, when I don't get a report back, we have a laugh, you have a joke. Yeah. It's not all about what I'm calling for. As I say, it's building up to that.
Yeah. But do know when you say plan your opening words very carefully because they must grab attention. Quite often it's not just the words you say either. It's your tone. It's the way you speak. You can if you're quite softly spoken, that's an advantage as well because I'm quite softly spoken, so I create more of an intimate atmosphere. Stuart's not always softly spoken, and he can be a lot more commanding. You know, so it all depends. You don't just work to adapt to the client. You work the best version of yourself, and it is important. That's why we say smile in your voice, or sometimes people say stand up when they're speaking.
Yeah, so just work to your strengths. That's all you've got to do is work to your strengths, and God will provide. Yeah.
So here we go. Be prepared to deal with the secretary or assistant. So this is what we talked about before about the gatekeeper. You know, you can get them to your side by being friendly and asking for their help. We've talked about help before. It's a common one. People will help. You know, oh, I've not eaten all week. I could do with making a sale. Do you remember when, I don't know, many years ago, I was on a sales pitch, and I was actually selling kitchens, and I had a pair of shoes with a hole in them. And in fact, the sole was flapping as well. Not for any reason that I was just bone idle. I just had got round to getting new shoes.
And it was pouring down outside.
Yeah. But when I went in, they noticed, and I said, "That's why I'm here, because I could do with the money to buy some new shoes."
They treat me terribly. They whip me when I get back if I don't get a sale.
No, if I do get a sale, they'll whip me. That's a good day. So, you know, you can use anything as long as you deliver it in the right way.
Yeah.
And like Stuart said before, just ask when a good time would be. Just be polite. Just be dealing, you know, if you phoned a friend up and said, "Oh, I'm just busy at the moment, can I call you back?" Yeah, of course. Just make, as long as you get the bite. I mean, what Stuart does sometimes is when they scream at him down the phone and swear at him and then send him a load of hate mail, he phones back a week later and say, "Hi, you asked me to call you back. Do you remember?"
And sometimes
it works.
It works.
Because they're just on a bad mood on the day. It doesn't reflect you. It's just how they feel on the day.
Yeah.
So,
or you get they remember me. So sorry, you caught me at a real bad time. But thanks for calling back.
Yeah.
And then you get into a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And me and my wife have patched things up now after you because she's realised that, you know, it's me she wants to be with.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And not me.
Not you. No. So, but open-ended questions are great. I mean, this is a bit formal, this, but you can ask lots of open-ended questions. Like, what we want people to do is get them saying yes and nodding their head. You don't really want a direct, give them a chance to say yes or no. You want to say, you know, do you find that people tend to shop with you more in the afternoon? Do you tend to find that you sell more on a Saturday than the rest of the week? You know, do you find that this software does it help you to send automated emails? Would automated emails is something that you do much of? You know, try and keep that questions moving. You know, would you ever go out with a bald-headed fat guy?
Hey, my missus just shouted "oi" in the background.
Yeah.
How do you know he was referring to me on the fat side?
Well, yeah. And remember that even though we're talking now, traditionally people can't see you nodding. So, you know, because a lot of us do that when we feel that we're learning something or we're on the same wavelength, so they can't hear you. So sometimes going around in questions, does that make sense to you? Are we on the same page? Or am I pressing the right buttons? Do you like what I'm saying? You know, these all lend in later to closing techniques, like
a nod equals a yes.
Yes, it means that it's this, yeah, but you can't see them nodding. So
no, that's what I'm saying. So when you're on the phone, when you get a yes, it's a nod.
Yeah.
Into the conversations.
Yeah.
And
so sometimes you can say, "Are you nodding now?"
Yeah. And just going back to what you said before, you know, I find that during office hours, yes, you'll get to speak to people. The majority you'll get to speak to, I say, will be after 5:30, 6 o'clock. Earlier in the week rather than later in the week, because they're actually shifted later in the week. Well, so the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are your key days, and the timing is your key day as well.
That's the point. Friday afternoon. If you don't want to phone, if you don't want to speak to someone, phone them on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, correct. No point.
Absolutely. Or very first thing Monday mornings. Just let people ease into the business and ease out. After lunch is often a good time. Before lunch, because people seem to slow down during the day, so they're more willing to speak to you. But remember, people, small businesses especially, everyone's always in a bad mood, always pushed, always stressed out. So later in the day is usually a better time to call. But it's difficult because these days people are 24/7 on the go. So
well, when you say these days, I mean the world has changed in the last.
I didn't just mean about the virus. I meant in general.
No, but you're more than likely catching people after any time really at home, because you know, hopefully the people you're calling are still in business and they're at home. They're not in the office.
Well, I think people that get cold calling right and get telemarketing right will do a fortune in this new world. You know, if Tele Sales can work with the public as well. If you're phoning to inquire about a delivery and they've got a special offer on something else, it's just possibly not a cold call that where you're introducing your firm. But you certainly say, we've got our delivery coming on Tuesday. Just while I'm loading up the van, I've got this as well. If it's of interest to you, so it's add-ons rather than selling something new. So, but do listen to people, because people don't always speak the same English that you do. I don't mean accent. I mean people use words in different ways. You know, words mean different things to different people.
Yeah, as well. You know, it's very important that you don't interrupt people as well when you're talking to them. Let them finish what they're saying, and then no matter if they're babbling on or babbling on, let them finish.
Yeah,
another thing as well. Give them the common decency and time to themselves on the phone, and let them answer the questions. And then when they're finished, then you go back in again. Instead of some people that I've spoke to on the phone, you know, they will just interrupt you before you finish the end of your conversation. And if you do once, okay, twice, but 3 or more times, people find that really, really rude, and they just switch off from you.
What about the ones where people are going, the salespeople are going, yeah, oh, yeah, and they're just not listening to anything you say?
No, they're not. They're not. You know, what you want back is you want a yes, then you want something. You know, well, give me an answer to what I'm asking. Don't just go, yeah.
You know what? When you've heard me say it, Stu, when people ask me how I am, And I say, well, I've got a bit of a rash. And they still keep talking.
Contagious over the phone.
So, right. Oops. Right. Bit sensitive, my mouse. So,
is that what you call it?
Yeah. So what we need to do is, if you're not sure what people are saying, remember, a lot of this is to try and build a database of responses. So if you write down, just make a note of what people are saying. I've seen your diary, Stu. You've got notes scribbled all over them. You've got more notes about what people are saying than
So
what
important
you're
if you're
do
doing
next.
that.
Yeah.
So important.
So just check what they're saying. You know, what their worries are, what their fears are, what their buying signals are. Like, oh, have you got them in red? Great buying signal, isn't it? You know, all that type of thing. Well, what if I go on holiday and I can't turn the computer on? You know, anything that they ask you is a question, but do the common ones, because then after each conversation you obviously want to send some sort of follow-up, and you can put down things that they maybe haven't asked but might count further down the line. So prepare in advance for likely objections, and have they call it a business case, but somebody comes up with, oh, I've got to speak to my wife. Well, what is it you want to speak about? What's a common objection, Stu? I want to think about it.
Well, you just got to be careful as well. You can't just, if they say I want to speak to my wife, you do ask, what is it that I have not explained to you that you can't make a decision yourself? But if they keep harping on 2 or 3 times about the wife or the partner, you can't be seen as too pushy, because it's not in our field.
So what do you do?
Quick sell.
What do you do?
I say, okay, no problem. What I'll do is then I'll give you a call this time tomorrow, or let me speak to the good lady. Is she there?
Let me speak to your wife. Yeah, bring her on.
Yeah.
So,
she's not here at the moment. I went, okay, no problem. When is she in?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. What do you mean you're not sure? You live with her. You make a joke.
Yeah. There is a little bit of pushiness, because if you get someone with an open-ended, vague reply like that, all that'll happen is that the next time you phone, you'll get the same answer. I mean, Stuart's a bit more abrupt with me like this, but I don't blame him, because he'll turn around and say, look, rather than me keep phoning you, if you don't want me to phone you, it's fine, I won't phone you. If you're interested, let me know. If you're interested next week, let me know. But just don't, I don't want to keep phoning you and wasting your time, and I don't want to waste my time either. Because sometimes you've got to let them know that your time is also valued, that you're also a person, that you also have value to bring to the table. So the more you speak to people and the more you write down what they're saying, the more you'll get to know what people say. Like, what's the biggest thing when people don't want to change, that don't want to buy the accountancy service?
The biggest
objection.
Biggest objection to it?
Yeah.
Family member is a family friend is an accountant.
Family friend is an accountant. That's a biggie.
You can't
Although,
do anything with that.
what you can say is sometimes you can just say, well, it's fine, I'll keep in touch with you, because families and friends knowing all your business isn't always the best place to be.
I've said that quite a few times.
And sometimes they come back. Quite often, it's not about family and friends. Quite often, it's not that they've been with the same accountant for 20 years. But quite often, it's about price. And once they've got prices, if they think they can save money, get the same job done and better, they'll find that they don't have the loyalty to family and friends and previous accountants as you think. That's not just accountancy work, that's right across the board. People, the only thing that people won't defect to is they will not go from Manchester United to Manchester City.
Oh my God, very good.
Thank you very much.
Where did you get that from?
Oh no, Stuart, came to me.
Mr. Non-football knowledge.
I also found out yesterday from Tony, who's another one of our colleagues, that the Gooners are called Gooners because of Arsenal, for another word for guns. Didn't know that.
Ammunition, yeah, correct.
Yeah, didn't know that. So, and anyway, sometimes
Victoria Concordia Crescent. That is Arsenal's underneath their badge. What it means, I'm not sure, but it sounds good.
You're a big Arsenal fan, aren't you?
My sins at the moment, yeah.
No, it does figure. I mean, the first few letters in the words explains that. But sometimes when we look at asking for a trial, has a penny drop yet? Sorry, Stu. Sometimes try a trial close without actually asking for the business. So we're always looking for mini closes all the way down the line. So you get people is the price what you're looking for? Is the price okay? Is it what you expected? Is it, could it be part? Don't say, can you afford it? Because people don't like that. But is it what you expected to pay? It's probably better than you thought, isn't it? Or isn't it? Because then they've got to agree with you. But, you know, will it do what you want it to do? You know, would this be the best kitchen for you? And so before you ask for the sale, you're mini closing all the way down the line, very subtly, very quietly, and you're getting them to give you feedback about what their objections are leading towards. You can build them in. So it's like I remember when I used to sell kitchens, I knew that what was going to come up was that the deposit was going to be a problem because they wanted to go on holiday. They wanted to, at the time, go for 2 weeks in Portugal with them and the kids. And at the time, a holiday would have cost like that would have been about £500, believe it or not. That could have taken a family away to a 5-star hotel in Portugal, including the flight. So guess what I did? I included the £500 into the price of the kitchen and got them a refund of £500 in cash that they could go buy the holiday with. And
you drop closed.
I dropped clothes, but I included the price, the holiday in that price. So
and if you would do, excuse me, sorry for interrupting you. I'm doing what I said 10 minutes ago that you shouldn't do. If you are a kitchen seller now, and you went on 10 visits, I guarantee the ratio would be 10 out of 10. Why? Because nobody can go away on holiday at the moment. So all they're doing is, all the guys are saying, to shut her up indoors. Okay, love, you want a kitchen? Have a kitchen, let's call them in. Great.
There's all of that. But the point is that we make mini closes all the way down to make sure you're on the right track. And that way, when you get to the end, they can't say, well, it's a bit more than I wanted to spend, because you've already asked them that. You're asking them, you're trying to bring out the objections before you ask for the sale. So if they agree on the price, they agree it's the sort of service they're looking for, and they agree now would be the best time to have it, and you agree that, there's going to be an after sales service as well and everything. So then you can say, right, I'll just get my contracts out, I'll just get the pen out. Are we okay to go ahead today? And it's that type of thing. So just bear in mind, I mean, there's a saying that ABC, always be closing, but you don't need to be pushy with it, because it's always be closing to find information and back off if the potential client doesn't like it, because you're in it for the long haul. So you can keep in touch with people. The only thing you don't want to do is keep phoning people that are not interested. So eliminate that. If they're interested and they're able to buy, because that's another way of qualifying a lead, you want to make sure that they're able to buy, they've got the money, and they need the target. So there'd be absolutely no point me trying to sell any of my products and services to somebody that just works in a shop. If they own the shop, yes, but I have no products or services I can offer profitably to the member of the public at the moment, anyway. I mean, saying that, I know people that do things like wills and finance and things, but I don't actually provide those services. So that's really, just bear that in mind. So
just I know we can edit this as we go along. It's going to, how long have we got here? Because I've got, it's 6 o'clock. I had to, no more, please. I've got to go do things here with Andy.
Right, fuck off, Stuart. We're here. So now we're on point 12. So we close the sale. So you can always try to get people to close in little bits. So even though what you really want to sell are a van load, you can say, well, why don't you just try and sell a box? I mean, my dad always says, look, if you want to buy some stock off me and it doesn't sell, you can bring it back. I won't give you your money back, but you can swap it for something else. So it's called risk reversal all the time, and smaller amounts to get them those little steps. Because you know yourself, once you've got your wallet out, you'll spend, but it's getting your wallet out. It must be that's probably why you've hurt your back, isn't it, Stuart?
No, I've got degenerative discs, you know that.
You get to 60, we've all got it.
60, bloody hell, I can't believe it.
I was going to say, we aren't all on happy pills all the time, but that's not fair to say, is it, Stuart? Because maybe some of us are.
Oh dear.
So always keep a good attitude, a healthy attitude. Don't try and rip anybody off. Don't make false promises. And you don't have to be ecstatic, but you have to remain a reason why people want to look at you, want to speak to you. Anything to say on that, Stuart?
No, not
Right.
really. No.
Okay, you're getting
fine.
bored now because we're getting towards the end. So we said before, get people talking. They like talking about themselves. You get, but
Yeah,
be
very much.
careful. Yeah, I mean, we've got a guy in the office called Tony who's, he's a very interesting people first, and he can talk for hours. I remember saying to him that you've got to cut your calls down a little bit. Why don't you time yourself? And he says, oh, I've left my watch at home. I said, but you've got a calendar on your desk. Anyway, so if we move on to find out more about people and find out what they're interested in, and remember, it's not about your products. It's what they can get. It's the benefits they can get. So the more you can be interested in your prospect, the more you can satisfy what they're looking for, then the more likely you are to move the sales process down. So that's anything to say on that, Stuart, to make people happy and make sure that they know that you care about them and you love them and understand their problems.
Yeah, sorry, was that question after they've actually agreed to whatever you're trying to sell them, or?
Well, when you've sold someone something, that's the time you put your trousers on and nip out of the bed, isn't it? But before that point, you've got to tell them that it would be worth you getting to bed with them and taking your trousers off.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah.
Yeah, of course, we want people to like us. We want to be interested in them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but if you show that you are interested in the person that you're talking to, you can ask the right.
Yeah, but you're doing all that in the conversation. You're doing all that at the very beginning when you get past the 15-second rule.
Well, you are, and this is the point. Good rapport, and sometimes as well, if the service isn't for them, you tell them, look, it's not for you. There's no point in selling it to you. You're not going to make best use of that.
I wouldn't do that. No, I actually wouldn't do that. If it's not for them now,
yeah.
I would say, okay, I'll give you a call back in 6 months' time.
But
and more often than not, they say yes.
I have, though. I've sometimes turned around to people that I didn't think could make best use of our services, and it wouldn't be the most cost-effective time to utilise us. So I've often said this service isn't for you, especially to some lunatic on the phone that I just know is going to be nothing but aggravation that we get them. This is another reason why people sometimes don't do so well. It's called the fear of success. So if you do make that success, you do get that sale, you start questioning what is that bringing to me. So what you want is the money, you want to push the sale through, you want to get your sales figures up. But on the other hand, you've got someone that's going to absolutely drive you up the wall night and day. And that's the, that what is it about the fear? What is it about the success that you just don't want? And that's a big thing when it comes to telesales as well, to people that are quite bubbly, are quite good on the phone. They sort of shy off because, especially when they're just about to close it, because they suddenly realize they don't like the person they're talking to and it's going to be a problem.
Or that person deep down inside, and very, very within days of bringing them on board. I've had this conversation with you before. No, I'm, for what it's worth, it's not worth them coming on board with us, because all we're going to get is complete aggravation. 7 calls a day, 5 days a week, and we're never going to get anything done.
No. And we know they've been bankrupt 6 times as well, because when we're looking at it, we know we're not going to get paid. So, but it's very easy to get caught up in all of this.
Yeah, it is.
So, but asking the right questions at the right time, just going back a little bit up the picture, is important, because it shows that you're listening. I've been asked questions that, well, I just told you that before. And it's annoying.
Once you get that, people are coming to ask you the same questions again, but in a different way. It's the same question. You then, more often than not, I would say, and it doesn't happen very often, but more often than not, I would say, look, it's not for you. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a call in 6 months' time, or here's our number, here's our email. If you need us, just get back.
Yeah.
Yourself, you're flogging a dead horse. Yeah.
Yeah. But some people do just phone and they're not listening. The purpose of this module is to make people be aware that they need to listen. People don't. And the more you listen, the more you get into the call. It's actually quite interesting sometimes what people have got to say. So be a listener more than a talker. No one likes to be sold or talked at. A telemarketing call should be dialogue, not a monologue, presentation or pitch. You should be talking to people. If you ask good questions and are interested in the other person, you're probably someone that can stop, listen, and shut up at the right time during the conversation.
Yeah.
Do control the conversation a bit though, because you don't want it to go on and on and on when it's not going towards what you're trying to sell. And conversation flow should ideally be no less than 50-50. So it's not the salesman 90% and the prospect 10. The more they talk, the more they will tell you. You just need to join in and direct at the key points. So listening is probably not the skill you thought when we talk about you making calls. Get people talking.
Don't let the tail wag the dog.
No. And be resilient, because it can be tough. You know,
that one, my missus Ed, she's works with dogs, and she's in the room here. That's why I said don't let the tail wag the dog.
Well, don't just remember that rejection isn't rejection of you. It's just because you caught someone at a bad time or they're not interested. Many people call me and I'm a bit short, not because I might not be interested in what they're saying, but because I just haven't got the time right now. So if they say I haven't got the time now, take that as a buying signal. Don't worry about it. I can hear you're busy. I'll call you back, and then email them and then call them back. So introduce yourself a bit more.
Or give them or agree a time between the two of you for them to be called.
Well, be persistent. Persistence doesn't mean driving people up the wall. Persistence means you keep going until you get them at the right time, or they say, don't call me anymore, I'm not interested. Don't mind the people. Just, if they say phone me up at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, phone them up at 3 o'clock on Tuesday. If they're still too busy, make another time. Just you decide when the time to stop calling them. And if they're not happy about you calling them, then just cut them off, wipe them off the database, and don't speak to them again. Because you can't keep someone on your database for more than 6 months anyway, unless it's active. And always look to find out what people's problems are, what pain, as they say, are you solving, and solve that problem. So when somebody does come up with an objection, it's the buying signal. It's saying, I am interested enough to tell you something about that product that you can overcome. It's saying, please overcome that problem so I can deal with that for you. And these tips do not represent all of the skills you need. Obviously, you've got to watch things like earn what. You cannot make personal remarks to someone like, "Oh, you've got a nice voice," or if you are on a face-to-face meeting, you can't tell them, "Oh, you look nice." You can't make personal comments in anything. I mean, that's a good bit of advice in business anyway. If a young lady comes in and she's had her hair done, don't say your hair looks nice. If a young lady or a man come in and say, "I've just had my hair done," then you can say, "Oh, it looks nice." But you've got to be invited to give that. And it's the same when you're on the phone as well.
Totally.
You can't, like I said before, if someone phones me and says, "I am mate," they're gone. I'm not the mate. I don't know them. And, or I am Steve. Yeah. I mean, but if that's the language that person speaks, then it's fine as long as
you'll know that within 10-15 seconds.
That's right. Yeah.
10-15 seconds.
Yeah. So always put yourself in the shoes of the buyer. And so I was going to say, let's repeat all of that again, just to make sure that that you're fully au fait with everything. But I'm not going to do that, because you can just rewind and watch this program again. And, just never be rude, and always know how to handle the questions. We've already talked about business telemarketing people. All these people know what they're doing, and we want you to know what you do before you deal with them. And don't sound like a telemarketer. And it is a numbers game. So the more you do it, the more successful you'll be. It's probably the ultimate numbers game. You're just going to make the ratios work. So if you know that you will get a sale. I mean, I think we worked out at one point that we had to make 39 calls in order to get one interested prospect, and then we'd get, out of 6 people we went to see, 3 wouldn't show, and we'd sign up 1 out of the 3, and then maybe get another one further down the line. So there is definitely a ratio to work on. So you need to find that out. The only way you'll do is by hitting the phones and see what happens. And then the better you get at it, the less phones you'll need to make. So planning, plan. Build the list of decision makers. Get your list right. You know, if you're selling vegetarian products, then maybe canvassing butchers is not the best place to go for you, or a steakhouse. Make sure you know who you're going to be dealing with. What do you say, Stuart?
Of course. You're right, what you say.
But a lot of people don't do that. They just hit out. They just pick up the phone book and off they go. Or do it for 10 minutes and say, oh, I can't do this anymore.
Those are the people that aren't really going to survive and not going to build a business that way because they've got no homework.
Yeah, but that's what we're trying to do. Just, you know, what is your target market looking for? Why would they even bother to speak to you? And what can you offer them that they haven't got, or you can do better for them? And have all these answers to you, so you know who your target market is, you know what they want, like we said, you know who they are, you know what their dreams are, and you know how you can supply that better than the competition. So research your list. Wear some armor. It's not for the faint-hearted. You've got to realize over and over that the nicer you're on the phone, the more you want to, before you phone someone, think, what am I going to learn out of this person now? Am I going to make a guy? Am I going to walk down the streets? It's hiya, John. You know, oh, I spoke to you last week. Oh, yeah. Are you going to start opening up your knowledge base of people? Are you going to start opening up how people deal with you? Are you going to make lots of new friends and connections? That's somebody that maybe didn't buy off you, but you could call them the next day and say, hey, my pal Stuart, he needs a new jacket. I'll send him in to you. You know, all the time, what can I do for these people without obviously sacrificing yourself? Handle objections. We've talked about objections. You need to know what those objections, you need to have a pre-answer for them, not just think on your feet. Have it so second nature that you know what to say to people. And that way, you'll probably look forward to a few objections, because there's a challenge turning them around. You've always been good at objections, haven't you, Stuart?
Always.
You've got to keep going with the calls. So the first lot of calls, you've never spoken to them. The second lot, you're calling back. The third lot, you've already had a laugh with. We know what they want. The fourth lot, you've probably already given a quote to. The fifth lot, they're starting to filter through and buy. Always remember that it's not going to transform everything overnight. Tele Sales is a policy that will take your business in a certain direction. You're not going to do telesales one day and make it for the rest of your life, but as a part of your daily routines and a part of your infrastructure, you've got to have some form of outbound connecting to clients, to potential leads all day. Then once you've been doing it for a few months, you'll start getting the benefit of the ones you called or had called in the first month, and it'll just keep rolling and rolling, getting bigger and bigger. So the next thing to do is start cleaning up some data. So we're going to do some exercises now. So get a piece of paper, write down your name, your email, everything else, and we've got a quiz for you now. So just write the answer number, and when you've done it all, send it to me. The exercise 1. What is the most important factor differentiating a telephone call from a face-to-face call? So a face-to-face call can be a meeting as well. It's where you can look someone in the eyes. Exercise 2. When prospecting, what is the most critical part of your call? Now you might have to go through this program again, or type it in online and see what it comes up with if you want to cheat. Exercise 3. What's the most important aspect of your telephone sales presentation? Why is questioning so critically important on the phone? Why is questioning so critically important anyway? Fact finding. Why is it so important in a telephone sales call to keep your sales process moving? We didn't really talk about sales processes. That's in another module. However, based on what we've talked about, I think you might be able to jump ahead and research this a bit more. Remember, I won't tell you everything you need to know, but I'm just putting you in the right direction. So go and look up sales processes, unless you've already seen the other module, which you should know. Which of the following aspects most affects the quality of your vocal presentation? Well, I wouldn't be calling someone if I had a sore throat and couldn't speak, but that's not the only thing. Which is the best definition of a telephone sales presentation? Exercise 8, which is the most important on the telephone? Which techniques has the most power to affect your results on the phone? So they're all a bit similar, but it's herding you into a certain area. What is the best method of improving your telephone skills? Now, if I said practice, I'll be giving you the answer. So, look it up yourself. So that's the end of this module. Send me your results for feedback, and enjoy and take care. And just a final note, if you need it, we've built several businesses on the back of Tele Sales. It's a bit daunting, but give it a go and let me know how it pans out and what you need help with. We've also got, as you met Stuart, as one of our coaches, but we've got all sorts of coaches in all sorts of areas. And if you do feel you could benefit from a coach, just again, let me know. So email me here, stephen@accountsdirect.biz. And that's the end of this particular module. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.